So, anyway, all right, MWM. Greater force production requires more energy. Does this mean a stronger person will always get tired more quickly than a weaker person unless he's better conditioned? Take a distance event in a sport like swimming or kayaking. Each competitor has to cover the same distance, no matter how strong he is. The stronger competitor has an advantage because he can produce more force and therefore move faster, but in doing so, he uses more energy and therefore gets fatigued earlier. Does he therefore need more conditioning than a weaker competitor to keep ATP flowing into his bigger muscles and avoid becoming tired too quickly such that he can no longer take advantage of his greater strength to move faster? Isn't this a legitimate concern when coaches worry about their athletes becoming too strong because their increased muscle mass results in increased oxygen requirements, which may be difficult to meet?
There's a lot of conflation going on there.
There's a whole bunch of misconceptions.
It's yes, yes, no, no to the series of questions that he just asked.
All right. Let's back up to his first sentence.
Yeah.
Greater force production requires more energy. Now, that is true. Does this mean a stronger person will always get tired more quickly than a weaker person unless he's better conditioned? Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that the stronger person is producing more force. He's producing as much force as is necessary for the movement.
Right.
And since his muscles are bigger, he's using a smaller percentage of his muscle mass to produce the same force that a weaker person would be using more of his muscle mass to produce.
Right. That's the problem.
That's
the problem is that you would have to assume that. Okay, so if you could set up a situation where two guys, one is large and strong and one is small and weak, are able to do a thing at the exact same effort.
At the same speed.
Let's say the same speed. But see, at the same speed, then the stronger guy is doing less work.
Right.
So it's not equivalent.
Which tells you what you need to know.
Well, it's exactly right. There's no way to make them equivalent. Now, I think the first assertion is true, right? It is true. You're using more energy, right? You're burning more.
Greater force production requires a greater energy expenditure, obviously.
But conditioning is trainable. As you get stronger, conditioning improves along with it. So they're tied, right? It's not.
Well, see, he's assuming here all through this question, he's assuming that the guy with the bigger muscles is using the same number of motor units to produce the same amount of force that the weaker guy is using, and he's not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question because people.
It is a good question.
I was talking to our friend John Valentine about this the other day because we were discussing some stuff about strength training and fighting, and no, actually, this was with Ray. So, a good way to put this, you see, let's put it in the jiu-jitsu context. You get a big guy that walks into a class, first time he's ever done it. He's got big muscles. He is going to gas out. Right, he's going to get very tired, and he's going to feel like he's drowning.
Because he doesn't know how to pace himself.
Now, everybody attributes his lack of conditioning and gassing out to his size and his muscles. Right. When you get a 135-pound guy that comes in, he also gasses out. But nobody talks about that.
It's
just part of the deal, right? Yeah. But who's been more trouble to everybody in the room?
Big guy.
The big guy.
The big guy, you can't handle the big guy.
Right, and if they both start at the same time, in 3 months, they're both going to have a very high level of conditioning. Yeah. Who's more effective? Obviously, the big guy's more effective, the strong guy. And even if you have two guys who are the same weight and one is significantly stronger, you can attribute, if you want to, the fact that the stronger guy got more tired because he's stronger. That may be true because he can hold positions harder and longer, and he may gas himself out. But guess what? He's going to be better conditioned than the weaker guy who's the same weight as him, because every time he does something, he does it at a higher level of force production. So you can't. They're married in terms of performance, right? You can't separate the two. So the question is, where do you spend your effort? You spend your effort getting stronger, because it makes no sense to do the conditioning first because you haven't improved your overall capability.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah, better conditioning in and of itself does not make the fight shorter.
easier or shorter. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, how could it?
Yeah, and it applies to
You
all
know,
any
I mean,
sport.
if I'm a big, strong guy, and I can get, what would you say? Let's say we got a street encounter. If I'm a big, strong guy and I get a street encounter and I can get it over with in 11 seconds, or I'm a weak guy who can't handle the attack and has to run away, and that whole thing takes 3 or 4 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it applies to all sports all the time. You know, it's the same thing no matter what the sport is. It's the same unless it's marathon running, right? Then obviously the conditioning thing is going to take priority. But yeah, people confuse this shit all the time. Just like this question's a perfect example, right? Because you're trying to mix two ideas that stronger equals more energy, so that's somehow detrimental. It's actually a positive, right?
So, I hope that answered that.
You know, a good way.
If you're looking for a way to justify not getting stronger, you're not going to find it
Not
on
here.
this podcast.
Tell me what you think of this analogy. So the conditioning is. So let's take the car analogy, right? Conditioning is akin to adjusting the air fuel mixture in the car, right?
Right.
How much adding a cold air intake, fucking around with the computer, how much gas you squirt in, compression, all these things. Your strength training is fucking with the suspension, stroking the motor, right? Stronger drive shaft. Like, these are structural changes. They don't slow the car down. They make it more robust. Then if you layer on top of that an optimized air fuel mixture, you've got a fucking machine on your hands, right? If you take my $2,000 Honda Civic that's sitting in my driveway right now, and I max out the air fuel mixture situation, I still have
a Honda
Civic sitting there.
Right.
Yeah.
Hi, boys and girls. This coming weekend on Starting Strength Radio, we're going to do what we call a paper Q&A. This is where you write us questions, we read the questions, make fun of you, and then answer the questions. But, in the process of doing that, everybody seems to learn some stuff. We've got an interesting show with what are some of the questions we
Questions on the press, military,
the press, military press, body weight, gaining strength, all kinds of stuff like that. Just standard, typical range of questions we always deal with. So you join us this coming episode of Starting Strength Radio, and we'll see you then. Bye.